Oh. When it rains pseudoscience, it f***ing pours. Hey everyone, I'm Abby Sharp. Welcome to Abby's Kitchen. Now I'm shooting a pickup here outside of my studio, so I can tell you about my sponsor, Babbel. So I know a lot of us have tried to utilize this past year or so to learn a new skill. And learning a new language has always been a goal of mine. So Babbel is this awesome language app that I discovered that teaches you a new language in as little as 3 weeks with short, fun, and accessible classes. They're taught by real language teachers, not AI technology or algorithms, and they use real life situations and dialogue to make it easier and more applicable in the real world. University studies have even found that 15 hours of using Babbel is equivalent to 1 whole semester of college Spanish, so it actually does work. They've got podcasts, stories, and games to help immerse yourself in the new language, and they also have live classes as well. So whether you want to learn a new language for work, travel, family, or self-improvement, in my honest opinion, Babbel makes it so much easier to help you meet that goal. So if you want to get started, check out the link in the description for 6 months free when you buy 6 months. Okay, over to the studio. Today, we'll be taking a deep dive into the controversial book that has been making shockwaves across wellness spaces, and that is Intuitive Fasting by functional medicine practitioner Dr. Will Cole. You know, the one that our girlfriend Gwenny was all over online. Now, before we get into it, feel free to pause the screen or look at the description to check out my general disclaimer, including a trigger warning to those with current or previous experiences with disordered eating. We will be talking a lot about calories and caloric restriction, so please skip this video if that's not supportive to your journey. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring that little bell so that you never miss out on an episode. All right, we got a lot to unpack, so just let me need a little energy for this one. Let's dive in. So those of you who missed this controversial Instagram post, the Goopy Queen herself has recently endorsed this intuitive fasting book as a flexible meal plan that combines intuitive eating, intermittent fasting, and the ketotarian diet. Yep, that apparently is a thing. Now, despite these seemingly contradictory eating philosophies, according to Gwen and Dr. Cole, intuitive fasting will not punish or restrict you, but promises to help you find food freedom by strengthening your intuition through fasting. Now, if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you probably just heard what I said and have asked yourself, like I've asked myself, how much time and energy do I have for bullshit today? One would think, not much, Abby. Not much. But alas, here I am, dragging myself through the trenches for all of your entertainment and educational benefits. So I love you. You're welcome. But the sooner I get into this, the sooner I get to go home for a cocktail. So let's answer the age-old question, what the f*** is intuitive fasting? According to Dr. Cole, intuitive fasting merges intermittent fasting and his questionable version of intuitive eating to achieve metabolic flexibility, which he claims to be the root of wellness. So what the hell does metabolic flexibility mean anyways? Well, according to Cole, this is our body's ability to adapt to different fuel sources like carbs and fat. By becoming metabolically flexible through his 4-week program, Cole claims that it will balance our blood sugar levels, improve gut health, manage stress, balance hormones, reduce inflammation, decrease hunger and sugar cravings, increase weight loss, improve longevity, promote anti-aging, etc., etc. You know, the standard list of ailments that apparently every diet fixes. There must be some kind of template that these diet gurus just copy and paste into their marketing materials, but anyways, I digress. If your wellness bullshit bingo card isn't already full, he also claims that this mystical metabolic flexibility achieved through fasting is the key to intuitive eating. Oh my no.
No! No! No!
I would love to know what the creators of intuitive eating, Evelyn Tripoli and Elise Resch, think about that statement right there. And while I don't want to put words in their mouth, from everything that I know about intuitive eating as an eating philosophy, any restrictive diet is not and will never be an integral key part of intuitive eating. Full stop. So either Dr. Cole is just ignoring the defined intuitive eating principles and making up his own definition to fit his agenda, or he's co-opting the term because it's trendy and cool in the hopes that it will sell more copies of his book. Or both. It's obviously both, but more on that later. Now, the research does suggest that impaired metabolic flexibility is linked to obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome, but there's no research to suggest that there is any specific diet that would have any measurable impact on it at all. In fact, a recent randomized control trial found that putting overweight and obese adults on a healthy diet made up of plant-based foods, fish, and low GI carbs did not even improve metabolic flexibility. And from a crap ton of population research, we're pretty confident that this is a very healthy dietary pattern for most people. So while the marketing of this diet and its associated health benefits might sound super sexy and appealing because, hey, metabolism and flexible are two words that wellness culture really likes, this theory of his is simply not evidence-based. In terms of intermittent fasting, as I've talked about in my video right here, there is emerging research supporting some health benefits for some folks. But Dr. Cole's allegedly intuitive version of intermittent fasting strips it of a lot of what makes it an attractive and even potentially intuitive option for some people. For example, traditional intermittent fasting puts restrictions only on when you can eat, not what you can eat. Meaning that during your eating window, you can eat liberally without a caloric restriction or limiting certain foods. But Dr. Cole's version of intermittent fasting is done in combination with the ketotarian diet, which is basically a plant-based version of the keto diet. Ironically, he states that he doesn't like to give hard and fast rules about what you can and can't eat, but then he goes on to share a list of allowed foods along with a list of foods that should be avoided. What the So in case you're curious, let me walk you through what you now can't eat on this non-restrictive, flexible meal plan of his. That is no sugar, artificial sweeteners, gluten, unhealthy fats, meat, dairy, alcohol. Plus, you'll also need to severely limit your fruit, starchy vegetables, legumes, and grains. In terms of what is allowed, Dr. Cole promotes clean keto foods, which includes cooking oils, nuts, seeds, eggs, non-starchy veg, fish, and plant-based protein. Is this guy delusional? Is this guy just hoping that people who read this don't understand the words on the page well enough to catch his gaslighting lies? Because I am legit confused.
What the f is that?
Also, his idea of plant-based protein is somewhat questionable in my books. For example, in his list of plant-based protein, he includes things like broccoli, asparagus, avocado, Brussels sprouts, and spinach, all of which provide around 2 to 3 grams of protein per serving. Not really my idea of a typical serving of protein, which ideally should clock in closer to 15 to 25 grams. Unless you're someone like Gwyneth who can completely separate your mind from your body for the sake of Instagramming your next bullshit cleanse, who the hell is going to keep this up? With all that said, let's take a closer look at Dr. Cole's 4-week intuitive fasting plan, starting with week 1. Week 1 is meant to reset the body and establish metabolic flexibility by fasting for 12 hours and following a ketotarian diet. At the end of week 1, Dr. Cole claims that you should expect to lose weight, decrease inflammation, improve digestion, and decrease sugar cravings and hunger. He also claims that there's no caloric restriction and that you can eat to satiety, and that this week serves as an intuitive and gentle fasting plan. I mean, that is an oxymoron in itself, and I didn't think it would get more problematic than that. But then he goes on to suggest that he still strongly recommends sticking to his meal plan, because even one small little hard candy or a few bites of a muffin can sabotage your progress towards becoming an efficient fat burner. His words, folks, not mine, because obviously I don't talk in ease, but it is interesting that Dr. Cole will consistently use words like gentle, intuitive, flexible, while in the same breath exercising fear-mongering tactics to bully readers into following his meal plan to a T. Sorry, is this based on his intuition or ours? Now, if we look at a suggested meal plan, we're only clocking in around 1,300 to 1,600 calories a day, whereas the general caloric recommendations for most adults is actually around 2,000 to 2,300 calories a day. In other words, you're looking at a major caloric deficit on a diet that Dr. Cole promises is not about caloric restriction. For the love of all that is holy, can we please just make a little more sense?
You sound insane. Do you realize that?
Anyways, moving on to week 2. For the few poor souls who make it this far, this week is apparently all about recharging your metabolism by restoring blood sugar balance and improving blood lipid levels. I just want to strongly emphasize that there is nothing you can do, fasting or otherwise, to reset or recharge your metabolism. Dr. Cole is basically just repackaging diet culture buzzwords to help sell his diet program, and it probably is working pretty well. In addition, when it comes to blood lipid levels, it can actually take anywhere from several weeks to 6 months for someone to see an improvement in their cholesterol from changing their diet. So to suggest that 1 week of fasting is going to give you such overwhelming positive results is totally unfair marketing. Ugh, but I digress. In week 2, the fasting window increases from 12 hours to 14 to 18 windows. But of course, this is an intuitive fasting plan, which Dr. Cole's made-up definition of intuitive eating means that there is no specific time frame for the fast, and that instead you should just listen to your body. So basically, you can just decide what time you want to start and end your fast, and that supposedly is to imply that this is all super intuitive. I mean, traditional intermittent fasting also gives you the option of when to position your fasting window. And I think that most people would argue that unless it's 100% aligned with your natural hunger and fullness cues, which may change from day to day, it's not intuitive at all. Dr. Cole also mentions that you may feel irritable, hungry, restless, and anxious as a result of the lack of carbs. Shocker. I mean, this may be related to what we call the keto flu, and it's also very common when starting a very low carb diet. To mediate this, he introduces what he calls clean carb cycling, which means that you can increase your net carbs to 75 to 150 grams 1 to 2 times per week. Now, while this amount falls outside the range of what's typically recommended for the keto diet, it is still considered a pretty low carb diet. Not to mention, the meal plan is very low in calories despite introducing a slight increase in carbs. Also, if you want to talk about listening to your body, if you're feeling fatigued, low energy, cranky, and most importantly, hungry, that's a pretty clear indication that you're just not eating enough. And any fasting, continuous caloric restriction, or carb cycling in a major caloric deficit is not going to solve that problem. So to brand this meal plan as one that is free from punishment and restriction is downright deceiving as f***. But unfortunately, it actually gets worse. Week 3 involves extending your fast to 20 to 22 hours every other day. meaning you only have a 2 to 4 hour eating window 3 days of the week, and you get a 12-hour eating window the remaining 4 days. Thanks? Apparently popping in these enhanced fasts helps to reduce the risk of disease, increase longevity, improve chronic disease symptoms, increase cellular renewal, and increase stem cells. So again, lots of buzzy BS words that people want to hear, but is there any science to back them up? Well, sure, if you're an animal or a cell in a petri dish, because that is what Dr. Cole relies on to substantiate his claims. The few human studies that he does cite were very short-term studies on intermittent fasting alone and not on his BS Frankenstein of various diets. So to continuously make such bold claims about these long-term outcomes like disease prevention with no long-term research to back them up is again grossly misleading. Now, finally, we've arrived at week 4, which involves transitioning back to a 12-hour fasting window and working in 2 to 4 clean carb days. So, same, but different? Even though by week 4 you're permitted a longer eating window, the meal plan is still crazy restrictive and punishing. Ironically, the major focus of week 4 is to cultivate a healthier relationship with food by practicing mindfulness. And this, my friends, is where I have to go off. Here's how Dr. Cole defines mindfulness in his book. Maybe you're in your fasting window, but you're dying for a cookie. Or maybe you just ate your break a fast meal, but you're still feeling hungry. Whatever the situation, step back and take a few deep breaths. Maybe make yourself a cup of tea, and while you sip it, observe any thoughts and emotions that come up. Notice any urges that you have to eat or indulge in certain foods. And then that's it. You don't have to do anything about those emotions or urges other than notice them with no judgments or resistance. This is how you grow your mindfulness muscle, which helps you get yourself back into the present moment and connect with your intuition. So, mindfulness to Cole is hearing your body scream for more nourishment and then actively ignoring it by getting yourself a cup of tea. This is the same problematic pro-ED diet culture tips that we've been fed since I was a little girl. Want that cupcake? Eat celery instead. Craving chocolate? Go brush your teeth. Want some chips? Just drink a gallon of water. Will yourself through using your mind power to not be hungry. No amount of deep breaths is going to change the fact that your body needs energy to sustain itself. And the longer and more fiercely that you restrict, the more likely you are to crack and become completely out of control with food. And while I do appreciate that Dr. Cole provides a very small disclaimer that individuals with a history of disordered eating should not follow this diet plan, while also mildly acknowledging that disordered eating can be triggered by fasting, he still insists that his plan is not disordered eating disguised as a wellness practice. I mean, it's similar to the way that he insists that his meal plan is not restrictive, yet he admits that you're likely to feel hungry and fatigued on it, and that you should eat what you want, but you will face grave danger if you don't do it his way to a T. Honestly, the kind of mental gymnastics going on here is highly manipulative and just straight up dangerous. What's worse is that he claims that eliminating foods during the plan is not a way to punish your body, but a way to show yourself honor and respect. So in other words, he's saying that starving yourself and denying your hunger is a form of self-love? Friends, this is all kinds of effed up, and it really does encourage an extremely dysfunctional relationship with food. There is nothing intuitive about denying your body food when it's begging to be fed, or for following a bunch of bogus food rules in the name of wellness. Here's the thing. Intuitive eating is not a weight loss diet, and we need to stop seeing wellness influencers or experts trying to co-opt this language to fit a restrictive agenda. Can you lose weight while practicing intuitive eating? Maybe. Some folks will naturally definitely lose weight. Can you try to actively lose weight through intermittent fasting while also doing intuitive eating? Maybe. Like, yes and no. As it was originally conceptualized, intuitive eating wasn't a weight loss diet. But I don't think that all of the principles are for everyone in its entirety. So I do think that if your goal is to lose weight, however that may be, you can still incorporate some of the key principles of intuitive eating into your plan. So things like respecting your body and gentle nutrition. I will also say that some people naturally and intuitively eat in a shortened eating window. That's what feels intuitive and good to them. So that's great. But it really does come down to intention. When you pile restriction onto restriction, cutting out foods that you love and abstaining for 22 hours from food, even when your body wants it, and then have to drink some tea to distract yourself from your hunger cues, that, my friends, could not be farther from an intuitive life. Obviously, Dr. Cole, or Dr. Cole's publicist and publisher, and by proxy, the bullshit queen, Gwyneth Paltrow, are simply jumping on the intuitive eating bandwagon because it's trendy, it's cool, and diet has become a bit of a dirty word. Talking about weight loss is now a hell of a lot less sexy than talking about digestion and energy levels and generally how we feel. But man, if you're gonna write a whole book about an eating philosophy, at least pick up a copy and do some homework. You can't just throw around words like intuitive, food peace, and food freedom next to things like clean, detox, ketotarian 22-hour fast. Oh, and here are some tips to help suppress your hunger cues. Cole and Paltrow do not belong in this space. So if the Gwenny endorsement wasn't enough to steer you away from this book, the problematic, dangerous, manipulative advice from the book that I presented to you right now hopefully will. And folks, that is all that I have for you guys today. If you liked it, be sure to give it the thumbs up. Leave me a comment below about what you'd like to see me review next. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye!